Welcome to the program. So let me just hear it in your words. It's a pretty big step to take, especially as a young State Department staffer, just in your first year, to do this and to do it publicly. What was the, if there was, the straw that broke the camel's back?
Thanks so much for having me and for drawing attention to this issue. I think as it became clear what U.S. policy was going to be as far as enabling the ongoing military operations in Gaza, as well as the intentional use of starvation as a weapon, I initially hoped to make a difference inside the State Department through the dissent cables, through internal forums, speaking with supervisors. And then eventually it became clear that from my position inside state, there was really very little that I could do. And so, as you mentioned, I was initially just going to resign quietly. I just didn't want to be part of this government anymore. But as I started to let colleagues know of my intention, they said, please speak for us. Please use your voice. Many of these are individuals who feel they cannot resign or who are still doing very important work inside the State Department. And so I decided that I would go ahead and go public.
Was it painful? What risks did you feel you were taking? What consequences for your life, for your child? You have a 1-year-old child, I believe, a mortgage.
Yes, those are all concerns. I do think I'm privileged. I'd only been at the State Department for a year. I have an academic background. I have a PhD in political science. I had previously been in the think tank sector, whereas I think for a lot of my colleagues who have spent their whole careers inside government or inside the State Department, it is much more challenging to think about, trying to leave. Although plenty of colleagues have said that it is something that they're considering, that they see what the U.S. government is doing as just in such direct contravention to the mission that they believe they're trying to uphold by working for the U.S. Department of State, and in contravention of American values more broadly.
Again, just to say it again, your job was to promote human rights in North African and Middle Eastern countries, and you've decided that you don't think under the circumstances that is a tenable position for you. You just talked about using starvation as a weapon of war. Yes, the EU has said that, yes, the UN, yes, other international organizations, but not the United States. Let me play this from the briefing on Monday by the State Department about whether the US believe, the department that you just left believes that is happening. Take a listen.
We have not made an assessment or drawn the conclusion that they are in violation of international humanitarian law when it comes to the provision of humanitarian assistance into Gaza. That said, we do believe there is very much more that they can do to let humanitarian assistance go in.
So you can hear the US saying that over and over again now, really for a long time. So they're trying to thread a needle, and they are dropping aid, they are complaining and demanding that more aid goes in. Tell me what you're noticing about maybe a shift in the public posture of the administration.
I think it's encouraging that we have started to see some degree of a shift, but at present it has made almost no difference to the lives of people starving and being bombed inside Gaza. I think to the extent that even things like the U.S. being willing to abstain at the UN Security Council is significant, but then the administration came out and immediately said that that was non-binding. So in general, I just find that the way the administration is trying to do this, I think they made a political calculation that they thought that it made the most sense politically to maintain this extreme support for Israel, regardless of the illegal behaviors that Israel engages in. And I just want to be clear that Israel is in violation of U.S. laws, whether it's the Leahy laws or Section 620I of the Foreign Assistance Act. The law is very clear here. And I worry very much that not only when the administration flouts those laws, it's not only having a devastating effect for the people of Gaza, but for U.S. moral standing abroad. And this administration came in pledging to reestablish America's moral leadership, to re-engage in international institutions, and this was something that many of my colleagues inside state really believed in. And this is part of why so many people are feeling so betrayed by the decisions this administration keeps making.
When you say violates U.S. laws, and you mentioned the Leahy law, can you just lay that out in case for people who don't know?
The Leahy laws require that if if units of a foreign military are, if it has been determined that they have engaged in gross violations of human rights, that those units are no longer eligible to receive U.S. military assistance. In addition, the other law related to humanitarian aid is that if a foreign country is blocking American humanitarian aid, they also render themselves ineligible to receive U.S. military assistance. So under these laws, as you mentioned, plenty of other international and other international institutions and other countries have made those designations, have said that Israel is indeed committing these actions, and yet the U.S. government is not yet willing to acknowledge that.
Do you think, I mean, you've just left, so you've obviously been privy to discussions over the last months. Do you think that the United States might move in that direction, this administration, because it's not just Leahy, and that was years ago, but it's right now. Senators like Chris Van Hollen, others, are saying that we need to make conditional our military support on the respect for international humanitarian law. Do you think that the U.S. is moving in that direction as President Biden increasingly expresses discontent, distress, and disagreement with the tactics, if not the strategy, of Israel's defending itself?
I certainly hope so, but I would push back against the characterization of Israel's behavior as self-defense. The administration continues to use those words because self-defense is permissible under the UN Charter. But the actions that Israel is engaged in, as far as, like we already discussed, the use of starvation as a weapon of war, continuing to hit buildings, institutions that are protected under international humanitarian law, such as hospitals, the ways that Israel is conducting this war, I would argue, fall far outside the bounds of what might credibly be considered self-defense. And instead, I would argue that I would add to the argument others have made that Israel is committing war crimes and is possibly engaging in an act of genocide.
And again, I have to say that obviously the State Department position is allegations that Israel is committing genocide are unfounded. That's the State Department position, and you would expect me to read that position out.